Everyone, welcome. We're so glad you're joining us today. My name is Stephanie Hanamato. I'm the Communications and Development Director at Environmental Education of New Mexico. Along with me today, we have Eileen Everett, the Executive Director, and Tally Siegel, the Director of Strategy. And we'd like to tell you a little bit about our shared vision and strategy, Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way.
So now we're going to take a few moments for each of us to share from our individual perspectives why we each think every kid, every day, every way is important and compelling to each of us. And to get us going, I want to share a little bit around a short story around a really pivotal moment for me as an educator. And several years ago, I was in a meeting that I learned about how inequitable our education is here in New Mexico. And that's really what sets us apart as being ranked as 49th or 50th consistently for education and child welfare and well-being in our state. And it really came down to looking at how different categories of our students tested compared to other states. And in particular, looking at our white affluent students in New Mexico, they're testing at the same rate, the same levels as students in states like Massachusetts and New York, which are really high performing states. I mean, consistently, we've got East Coast states and other states that are ranking at the top of education annually. And really getting into the data and the numbers, realizing that things like poverty and low income, I mean, over 2/3 of our New Mexican kids are classified as low income, and that things like our students of color, which are over 3/4 of our youth identify as students of color, that these are factors that really lead to inequitable education. And how can we really have conversations about this and really challenge how we can serve all students in equitable ways? And really this idea of every kid was born, that over 300,000 of our kids identify in ways as either they're low income and or students of color. They might have learning disabilities or learning differences, and they might even be students who identify as LGBTQ plus and these other marginalized identities. And the more that we can think about every kid and how we can support every kid, that's really one of the key pieces of really seeing systems level education transformation in New Mexico. So every kid is really something that I keep coming back to as a concept to dig deeper and deeper and to work with others to explore more and more ways to think about equitable education. Steph, can you share a little bit more about Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way and why it's important and compelling to you?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much. So, you know, the piece that resonates with me, I think, is um, thinking about getting kids outside every day. So the research shows I'm really interested in research and thinking about data. And the research shows that when kids get outdoors and participate in outdoor and environmental learning consistently, they have improved physical, emotional, social, spiritual health and well-being. They see lots more connections with their communities. They get more interested in civic action. Their motivation to learn actually increases. And I think a lot of educators might shy away a little bit from taking their kids outside because they're worried that their kids might not be motivated. But actually what the research demonstrates is that kids are more motivated when they get outside to learn. And we actually see enhanced academic achievements, so higher test scores and things like critical thinking are improved. So I think it's really critical to get kids outside consistently and regularly.
Thanks for sharing that, Steph. And Tally, we would love to hear from you on why is Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way important and compelling to you?
Yeah, I wanted to just share an anecdote, like connected to what Steph had just said about that sort of increased motivation. I was just at a school, an elementary school in Albuquerque, talking to some fourth graders about what they like about learning outside, and they were like, "It calms us down. We're better. We
Mhm.
feel better and more prepared to go back to the classroom and have a good day at school." And it's just like, could these kids speak more closely to the data and the research by just speaking off the cuff when, we're in a small conversation. But what I think is really compelling about this vision and strategy is that we're really focused on every way that students across New Mexico have opportunity and access to do environmental and outdoor learning. There are so many deep connections to the land that kids and families have across the state. And I really love that the Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way strategy focuses on that like sort of community-centered, kid-centered approach to highlighting what it is that environmental and outdoor learning is, so that so many ways of knowing and being and learning have space to be really impactful and valued as education through through this strategy.
Yeah, thanks so much. I want to kind of wrap it up too, of thinking about, I love how we each were talking about data and research and our answers, and really pointing to outdoor learning being an evidence-based approach that we can look to in education, as well as it really struck me thinking about how the three of us, we have decades of experience of all of us working with kids all around the state, thousands and thousands of kids, and have had that lived and work experience of seeing how kids are transformed through these daily experiences and the many different ways that they can engage with the outdoors. So thank you both for sharing your thoughts about Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way.
So one of the things we wanted to talk about in our conversation about Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way as a shared vision and strategy is really where this plan came from. And I think it's really helpful to take a step back and talk about the process, because the process was really quite transformational for environmental education in New Mexico, in addition to leading to this outcome of a shared vision and strategy created through the community across New Mexico about people who support outdoor environmental learning. So one of the things that was key to the process of laying out Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way was asking some key questions. And this we did years and years ago. And these questions that really underpinned our process started with, what if rather than talking about decontextualized diversity and inclusion, we could create change through shared power and leadership today? And I think that really speaks to what we talked about earlier in our first, what's compelling about Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way is really addressing inequity in the education system in New Mexico, but like in context and through really taking a transformational, like systems-based approach. So that was one of our key questions. Another question that underpinned the beginning process that led up to this shared vision and strategy was, what if while exploring how to dismantle and reform systems of power, we centered liberation in our own ways of being? And that's so essential to how many cultures and identities and histories on of this place, New Mexico, that are coming together. So there is room for all of our ways of being and knowing to have space in environmental and outdoor learning, and in more formal education settings as well. And then our third question that really underpinned our process was, what if transformation could look like honoring our whole selves and allowing us to deepen relationships and collaborations with each other, exploring new ways of being in the outdoors, and collectively creating a plan for systemic change? And that has shown up in this process of building Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way, and in a lot of really, really interesting places. I think for me, one of the things I see it is in where EE&M has kind of moved into bringing leaders across the state together through our fellowship program and working with folks who are already in leadership capacities on a transformational leadership model to kind of build in more practice around systems thinking, systems change, and really like integrating the whole self into leadership in education to implement that change. Eileen, do you want to share more about the sort of community convenings that took place for years and how those um, helped lead to transformations not only within the organization, but like this outcome of the shared vision and strategy?
Yeah, thanks so much for that overview, Tally. And I really love, and you've really brought this into our framing, our everyday framing of our work now is how do we move away from decontextualizing diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? And how can we not just talk about those things, especially applying to students, but how can that actually transform the ways that we interact with one another? And this idea of looking at equity as relationships and even to how we work together as a staff team or our full leadership team, and then with our community. And a lot of this has really come about from our community conversations, where we had over 3 years of community conversations open to anyone interested in engaging around equitable access to the outdoors and environmental learning. So not just environmental education, but really this idea of engaging in the outdoors and in the many ways that New Mexicans do. And so we invited youth and parents and educators, teachers, those interested in environmental justice and food justice, conservation, different forms of outdoor recreation, invited everybody in the room together with one another to work on relationship building while allowing the community to lead us as an organization to help us understand what's really needed in terms of a vision, mission, strategic direction. And really from those community conversations, this idea of every kid, every day, every way really came to be and was really solidified as being that shared idea, that shared vision, as well as prioritizing things like more and more folks expressing that they really needed and wanted things like more transformational leadership. So the EENM fellowship program that was launched in 2020 came directly from what we heard expressed as a need in those community conversations. And then how can we as an organization show up and respond to those needs that our community so well expressed to us?
I love how this piece of the process of building every kid, every day, every way actually kind of culminates in so many ideas coming from the community, EENM finding and collaborating with many partners to make many of those ideas kind of come to fruition. And then building, including those ideas in that fellowship uh, curriculum, I guess I'll say, so that we could really bring the pieces together from all of that community input, use some really thoughtful models for processing all of that input, and come up with some priorities, which is really at the end of the day what every kid, every day, every way does. It sets out a set of priorities that are, across the board, professional, community based, and policy oriented to help realize this goal of every New Mexico kid having daily access to outdoor environmental learning.
Yeah, and I would just love to share how I'm so glad that the E&M leadership team and the fellows really adopted this systems approach in ensuring equity for New Mexico's kids. It's if we just address the surface level things, quick fixes, we're not going to see, the long-term change that we would all like to see to ensure that every kid gets to participate. Because New Mexico it's such a beautiful state with so many enriching opportunities. And, now that we're addressing these root causes and making really strong programmatic recommendations, we can realize the vision of getting every kid, every day, every way outside.
Yeah, and a piece I'd love to add in here too is this idea, and it shows up again in I think all the different layers of our organization, is really creating spaces that are different. They feel different because they are different in that we're really honoring the many different perspectives and experiences and wisdom and thoughts that people are sharing in the room. And it's not the typical gathering that those who have leadership titles have more power in the space, but that we really have an opportunity to all learn from one another. it's one of the things that I actually really value in our leadership team too, is that I have my own expertise and experience that I bring into the conversation, but you both have your own experiences and wisdom and thoughts. And it's when we really stop and listen to one another that I think that there's real, I don't know how else to say it, but real magic in terms of our learning and what we can really accomplish with one another. And that's been some of the I think incredible things that have really come out of Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way in this process. Thank you both so much for all the sharing. It's so great to hear your perspectives on the process and some of the unexpected outcomes that have come from our work doing systems thinking and equity as relationships and bringing many different ways and thoughts into the room. So thank you both so much for sharing.
Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way is centered around 5 recommendations, and when they're carried out at all scales, long-lasting change and impact will be achieved for current and future generations of kids. Through a shared, coordinated effort over the next several years, the Land of Enchantment will become a model for supporting equitable access to the outdoors and environmental learning for youth, families, and communities. We wanted to give you a quick overview of all 5 of these recommendations. Our community recommends developing a network of Outdoor Gear Plus libraries to support kids, families, and community members. Not only can these libraries provide outdoor recreation gear, apparel, field guides in multiple languages, and other items for outdoor activities, they can provide access to family-focused outdoor activities and serve as a hub of learning and discussion in local communities.
Another recommendation is to create accessible outdoor spaces to facilitate hands-on, standards-aligned learning on school grounds. There is an ongoing need to enhance and develop outdoor classrooms and learning spaces at all schools in New Mexico.
Our community also recommends restructuring requirements and resources for pre-service and in-service teachers to include an introduction to outdoor learning class. We suggest resourcing and supporting teachers for ongoing professional development annually.
Another recommendation is to resource an Office of Outdoor and Environmental Education at the state level to support teachers and school staff, as well as embed outdoor ambassadors in every school district and ultimately at every school.
Our community recommends investing in the development of standards-aligned curricula in climate change, environmental justice, and place-based cultural learning by bringing together educators and content experts. Indigenous knowledge and history and exploring other cultural land connections can be centered in place-based learning.
Thanks so much for joining us today for our conversation around Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way. And I'd love to just wrap up our conversation today with opening it up to Tally and Steph to share any final closing thoughts and advice for all of us. So Tally, let's start with you. What are your final thoughts that you'd like to share with our community today around Every Kid, Every Day, Every Way?
Yeah, I think that I get questions on, how do we participate in this? How do we stay involved? And really what the strategy is about is bringing community together to share, to collaborate, to really pull our resources together to support every kid outdoors and environmental learning access, every day in all kinds of ways across the state. So we at EENM host regular community gatherings. We also have some really amazing tools where you can share your work, highlight your curricula, and or find resources for your area. You can learn more about that in one of our other sessions we did earlier this week during Outdoor Learning Week on the state of outdoor learning landscape analysis tool that's on our website. It's so great place to share what you're doing, great place to find new partners, great place to just zoom in to your zip code and see what's going on. And then we can really be building out what we're doing and supporting outdoor environmental learning in those ways. Really bringing community together is how we want to encourage people to be involved.
Thanks so much, Tally. And Steph, what would you like to share?
So I think I'd just like to piggyback on what Tally was saying there. Everyone has a role to play. And, you know, if you're an educator, take your kids outside to learn, get them outside in informal and formal ways. If it's a lesson that you found online that has, you know, really involved and is, you know, very standards aligned and has every aspect worked out, that's fantastic. Also, if you just want to take them outside for a walk and see how many birds you can count in the neighborhood, or show them the historic buildings in the area and make a social studies lesson. Or if they're young kids, can they find 12 adjectives in nature? You know, and really be a cheerleader for outdoor education with administrators and families and building that support. When you've got kids excited about it, when you've got administrators and family members excited about it, we can continue this grassroots movement to make outdoor education accessible for all kids in New Mexico. So thanks for your support, everyone.
And thank you both. It's such a pleasure to have you both on the leadership team and all that you bring to the work every day with strategy, communications, and really this shared decision making and shared leadership approach we've really adopted as a result of all of the processes that we've been innovating over the last several years. And I want to offer my heartfelt gratitude to our broad community, all of you, for all the work that you do every day to get kids outside. We look forward to seeing you at our monthly community gatherings, and a special thanks to all of our EENM members, our individual members and organizational members. We wouldn't be able to offer all of these opportunities and events without your support. So thank you for everyone who contributes in all of the ways that you do. And let's continue to all come together to keep supporting every kid, every day, every way. Thanks so much, everyone.